first time in the history during the Gulf War of 1991. About 1 million bullets, or 320 tons of depleted uranium, were used from the highway of death, they call it, from Kuwait to Basra, then up to Nasiriyah and other Iraqi cities. 11, spreading and dispersion of depleted uranium contamination to surrounding areas also occur through windstorm, dust storm, sandstorm, and rainstorm. Published data indicated significant increase in the frequency of annual dust storms in Iraq, both and Kuwait. For first 80 months of 2009 witnessed about 20 dust storms as declared by the Iraqi Ministry of Health. 12, after 18 years, Kuwait required U.S. Department of Defense to remove the depleted uranium contamination wreckage from their land. Over 6,700 tons of contaminated soil, sand, and other residues were collected and shipped back to USA for burial in Idaho and American Ecology at Bios, Idaho. The United States administration and the Pentagon officials still insist that DU has no significant health hazard, yet they shipped back their dirty radioactive wreckage to home back to America from Kuwait. 13, the court in Florence, Italy, made a decision on 13 January 2009 ordering the Italian Ministry of Defense to compensate one of the Italian soldiers, Marica, with around 500 euros, as he was a parachutist who was deployed in Somalia for 8 months in 1993. This decision is very important because it stated the causal link between the presence of depleted uranium and the illness or the cancer of the soldier. The court's statement includes the report of technical consultant who maintained that there is a causal link between Hodgkin lymphoma developed by the soldier and the exposure to depleted uranium. 14, however, uranium radiation hazards are covered up and mispresented through the obsolete model of risk and derived standards of allowable exposure set by International Commission on Radiological Protection, ICRP. This model was derived from invalid assumptions due to secrecy and cover-up about the health effects of Hiroshima and Nagasaki bomb at the time, around the Cold War and the development of nuclear power and weapon. 15, the ICRP risk model was built from studies of the atomic bomb survivors, which overlooked the effect from internal radiation source and ignored cancer that in some cases take decades to appear. It was certainly developed before the DNA and the human genome knowledge existed the way it is now. The 16, intentional denial and refusal of the United States and United Kingdom administration to release information about these types, locations, and amount of depleted uranium weapons that have been used against Iraq have caused additional radioactive doses that's been received by the population of Iraq and health damages to the people in contaminated areas. Both administrations should be held responsible for this crime. The drastic increase of cancer incidences in Iraq since 1995 to date, and the DU-related diseases like congenital malformations, miscarriages, etc., defects in the, you've seen the deformed and the defect kids in the exhibition of this conference, are all attributed to the use of prohibited weapons, including depleted uranium. 18, Depleted uranium contaminated area all over Iraq are continuous source of radioactive pollution without cleaning and the other measures. Resuspension of these contaminants with each dust and sandstorm can be considered as a systematic attacks by the US and UK armies on civilians in an armed conflict. 19, a copy of my paper on this matter stated above is attached with Exhibit SA1. This is a crime against humanity to its undifferentiated harmful health impacts on civilians for long time to come after the military operations have been conducted. And I am making this solemn declaration, consciously believing the same to be true and by virtue of provision of the Statutory Declaration Act of 1960. I have, if you allow me, some extra useful information, a few of them, if you may, Chairman of the Commission. Can I read a few more points out of my declaration?
From the declaration?
Yeah, but this is some more useful information. If you
I think we have your report, your expert report.
Okay.
I think I would now invite members of the Commission if they wish to seek any clarification.
Okay.
Dr. Suad, thank you very much for your brilliant presentation. It's an exposure of DU and its use, which I've never seen so thorough a job before. Thank you very much. I hope we can use it worldwide in due course.
Thank you.
In paragraph 10, you refer to the Gulf War of 1991.
Yes.
And the fact that depleted uranium was used extensively and used for the first time in human history.
Exactly.
And I just want to note for the record that the war of 1991 was a war of the United Nations Security Council.
That's what they claim.
Approved by the United Nations under Chapter 7, Article 42 of the Charter of the United Nations.
But
And the record,
excuse me, please.
and the record should note that the atrocities, the road of death, and the DU usage was approved and authorized, presumably, and committed in the name of the United Nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, the armies practically who used the DU from all other armies were the United States and the United Kingdom. That's why we insist on pointing that to them, because practically the United States of America is the first one who manufactured the depleted uranium weapons. They converted the radioactive waste of enrichment of spent fuel to bullets and weapons, instead of, just spending this much money on USA to protect USA population from these radioactive materials, and converted them to harmful, contaminating radioactive bullets and projectiles, and used them against other parts of the world and sold them to other parts of the world. So it's very, very specific.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Swat. Yes. Now, anyone else would like to ask any question? If there's no, yes.
Doctor, thank you very much for your testimony. Very quickly, you talk about the invalid assumptions due to secrecy and cover-up. There were subsequently, to my knowledge, joint undertakings between the Japanese and the Americans. They had a series of reports under the, you may know, the Beer reports, the biological effects of internal radiation. And they tried to cover up. And at one stage, the chairman, I think it was Beer 4 committee, resigned in protest because he wanted to include the actual effects.
Exactly.
And he was, and they refused to do it because of political interference.
Recently, this is recently.
No, some time ago. And then he resigned. But since then, there has been clearly proven that there is a clear linear link between low-level radiation